time ask you to stop the FBI investigation into Russian involvement in the 2016 U.S. elections?
Not to my understanding, no.
Did any individual working for this administration, including the Justice Department, ask you to stop the Russian investigation?
No.
I thought that was significant. Well, since the president never asked James Comey to stop the Russia investigation, where do the conspiracy theories start? According to a new book, look no further than the Clinton campaign.
The authors of Shattered writes that strategy had been set within 24 hours of her concession speech. Mook and Podesta, her team, as you know, assembled her communications at the Brooklyn headquarters to engineer the case that the election was not entirely on the up and up. Already, Russian hacking was the centerpiece of their argument.
Here now to discuss is co-author of Shattered, Inside Hillary Clinton's Doom Campaign, Amy Parnes. Good morning, Amy.
Good morning.
Yesterday, when we were getting ready for the James Comey testimony, we were talking in our office about how, go back 7 months ago, and this was the spin on why she lost. Robbie Mook and John Podesta got together. Well, she lost. What's going to be our story? Russia. Let's put Russia. Let's push Russia. And the mainstream media followed it. And there we were yesterday with James Comey in the hot seat.
Right away. In fact, she wanted that case out there. She wanted to make the case that it was all Russia and Jim Comey. And this was their strategy from the very beginning that they were going to push. And it's still something that you hear her talking about right now. She's not looking inward to blame herself. Or what she did on the campaign. And I think a lot of Democrats particularly want to hear about that because they want to know, how do we learn from this?
But it was made up.
Well, I don't know about made up, but it was definitely what they wanted to push. And it's something that, you know, you heard on calls the following day. There were a series of calls with donors, with surrogates, and that was something that they were pushing, particularly John Podesta on these calls.
So it didn't surprise you, I imagine, judging by the research you did and what you put in the book, to see her out on the stump over the last 3 weeks saying, no doubt about it, I made mistakes, but that's not why I lost.
Right.
I lost because, fill in the blanks. It wasn't because of deplorables, it was because Russia hacked the election.
Right, and she's continued to talk about that. And like I said, a lot of people want to hear what else went wrong. And I think we talk a lot about that in this book, that there were problems with message and that they were over-reliant on data. And they didn't really have they didn't mix in the art with the science. And that was the problem. That was something that Bill Clinton flagged really
You mean the
early on.
facts.
Right, right.
I think you mean facts. And I want to talk more about that whole idea of facts and evidence and all of that. I'm not going to ask you who you talked with, but I know you talked with just about everybody around Hillary Clinton. Was there ever a thought that, you know what, at some point we're going to probably have to show some evidence of collusion here? Anybody got any of that? Anybody?
Right, and you know, they've continued to make that point, but what they did is they failed to make that point during the campaign. They had an opportunity, particularly after one of the debates when they focused on Alicia Machado, instead of making the case that, you know, 17 intelligence agencies had, in fact, talked about collusion. So that was a problem.
Sure.
You know, there were missed opportunities there.
Right, but it's 7 months later, and even Mr. Comey yesterday said there's no, you know, on his last day at the FBI, there was no evidence that there was collusion between the Russians and Trump.
Well, I know, and, you know, he does make this point, and he says, you know, it was definitely out there. I think he uses the word fuzz and says, I don't want to leave anything.
There was no fuzz on it.
Right, right.
It was clear.
Right, but the John Podesta emails that revealed the inner workings of the campaign certainly hurt. Now let's talk about the revelations about 2015. And Attorney General Loretta Lynch, who evidently meets on the tarmac by some happenstance, gets reported by a reporter with Bill Clinton. And then we find out yesterday that James Comey, or reaffirmed yesterday that James Comey said, I was told by Loretta Lynch, along with a whole group of people, don't call it an investigation. Watch.
We were getting to a place where the Attorney General and I were both going to have to testify and talk publicly about it. And I wanted to know, was she going to authorize us to confirm we had an investigation? And she said, yes, but don't call it that, call it a matter. And I said, why would I do that? And she said, just call it a matter. It gave the impression that the Attorney General was looking to align the way we talked about our work with the way a political campaign was describing the same activity, which was inaccurate.
Scrambling behind the scenes, how significant was that?
That was pretty significant. It was a massive revelation, and I think it got a little bit buried in the broader Trump news yesterday. But I think it's quite a story, and I think there was a lot of consternation inside the campaign, particularly after that Lynch-Clinton moment on the tarmac. You know, even at the White House, Obama aides were kind of scratching their heads and going, "They're smarter than this." I don't know, it was a really bad moment for the campaign, I think.
Yeah,
Right.
you know what's interesting too is that even now supporters of the campaign say that that might have been one of the, like a tipping point, one of the biggest moments was when Bill Clinton and Loretta Lynch were on that plane on that tarmac.
We still hear about that actually when my co-author and I have been on a book tour, and that's one of the biggest questions, like why didn't they see that that was a problem?
And yesterday, Mr. Comey made it clear that he felt pressured by Donald Trump to do what he did, whereas when you look at that exchange between Loretta Lynch and James Comey, it looks like he felt pressure from her. It looks like she was trying to influence the campaign.
And the one thing that a lot of people that I talked to yesterday, in fact, were saying, you can trust this guy because he obviously is in a, he's telling the truth about both sides.
One thing is consistent, he never speaks up. He goes in there and goes, "Dear diary."
Right.
And little thought bubbles pop out, and he keeps it for a rainy
It's
day.
fascinating. Yeah, I mean, you could tell that he didn't have an axe to grind yesterday.
Amy, great to have you this morning to break that down.
Thank you so much.
I think he had an axe to grind. He wanted to get back at the